The shackles around Ronin's wrists were made of condensed starlight, burning with a cold, numbing fire that kept his nervous system on the edge of shutdown. He knelt on a floor of polished obsidian, his reflection staring back at him. Tired, bruised, but eyes burning with a defiance that had gotten him into trouble across 3 different star systems. Around him, the court of the Aethelgard shimmered. They were beings of energy and crystalline armor, towering over the humans they considered little more than cattle. And at the center of the room, seated on a throne that looked like it was carved from the heart of a dying star, sat Queen Xylara. She was ancient. The history books on Earth, what few mentioned the Aethelgard, claimed she had ruled for 5 millennia. She was 10 feet tall, her skin the color of deep violet twilight, dusted with constellations of glowing bioluminescence. Her face was terrifyingly beautiful, a mask of absolute boredom and lethal power. Another tribute, her voice didn't just vibrate through the air. It resonated in Ronin's bones. It sounded like the shifting of tectonic plates. From the Trade Federation, they grow tedious. The nervous ambassador, a bird-like creature who had bought Ronin off a scrapper ship, bowed so low his beak scraped the floor. Your Eternal Majesty, this is not mere livestock. This is a human. They are a rare breed. Short-lived, yes, but surprisingly durable. I present him as a servant for your personal chambers, a curiosity to amuse you during the long cycles. Xylara leaned forward. Her eyes, solid pools of glowing gold with no pupils, locked onto Ronin. The weight of her gaze felt like physical gravity increasing. Stand, human, she commanded. The guard stepped back, expecting the human to struggle to his feet. Ronin didn't struggle. He stood up in one smooth motion, squaring his shoulders, ignoring the pain in his wrists. He looked the 10-foot giantess in the eye. The name is Ronin, he said, his voice raspy but steady. And if I'm going to be a curiosity, I hope the pay is better than the food on the transport ship. The court gasped. A collective hiss of energy weapons charging filled the room. No one spoke to the Eternal Queen that way, not if they wanted to keep their atoms in a solid state. The ambassador screeched, "Forgive him, Majesty! He is broken, defective! I will dispose of—" "Silence," Xylara said. She didn't look away from Ronin. For the first time in centuries, the corner of her lip twitched. Defective? Or perhaps just unafraid? She stood descending the steps of the dais. The sheer size of her was overwhelming. She loomed over Ronin, a goddess of war and time. She reached out a hand, her fingers tipped with claws that could slice through diamond, and tilted Ronin's chin up. "You are tiny," she observed, her voice dropping to a purr that was both sensual and terrifying. "Fragile. A single thought from me could liquefy your brain." "Then I guess I better not give you a reason to think too hard," Ronin quipped. The queen's golden eyes narrowed. The silence in the room was deafening. Then, a sound echoed through the chamber that hadn't been heard in an age. Xylara laughed. It was a dark, rich sound. "Take him to my private spire," she ordered, turning her back on the stunned court. "Leave the chains. I want to see how long it takes him to break them." The private spire was less a room and more a fortress of solitude, high above the clouds of the capital city. It was filled with artifacts from civilizations that had turned to dust while Xylara was still young. But it was cold, empty. It felt less like a home, and more like a mausoleum for a living god. Ronin had spent the first hour picking the lock on his starlight cuffs, using a piece of metal he'd torn from his boot heel. Human ingenuity didn't need high-tech keys. It just needed leverage and patience. When the cuffs finally clicked and deactivated, falling to the floor with a clang, Ronin rubbed his raw wrists. Step 1, don't die. Step 2, figure out where the hell the kitchen is. He was exploring a wall of holographic displays when the door slid open. Xylara entered, stripping off her ceremonial shoulder armor. Underneath, she wore a simple bodysuit of shifting weave, revealing the powerful musculature of her violet form. She looked exhausted, a fatigue that went deeper than muscles, right down to her soul. She stopped dead when she saw Ronin standing there, unchained, holding a datapad he had pulled from a shelf. "You freed yourself," she stated. "It wasn't a question." "Your locking mechanisms are based on energy frequency." Ronin shrugged, tossing the datapad onto a table. "Disrupt the harmonic resonance with a piece of magnetized iron, and they pop right open. You guys rely too much on tech. Sometimes you just need a paperclip." Xylara stared at the cuffs on the floor, then at the small human male. You are a thief? I'm an engineer, or I was, before my colony got glassed by the Dominion. Now I'm just a guy trying to survive being a curiosity. Ronin walked over to a massive window looking out over the alien city. Nice view, a little lonely though. Xylara moved to a sanitation station, pouring herself a goblet of viscous blue liquid. Loneliness is the price of immortality, Ronin. I have outlived my lovers, my enemies, and my children. Do not presume to understand my existence. I don't, Ronin turned to face her, but I know what it looks like when something is broken. He gestured to the massive energy conduit in the center of the room, a pillar of light that hummed with an irregular, grinding rhythm. That regulator is misaligned. It's creating a subsonic vibration. It's probably giving you a headache, even if you don't realize it. Xylara rubbed her temples. That conduit has hummed for 300 years. The royal architects say it is normal. The royal architects are idiots, Ronin said flatly. He walked over to the pillar. Do you have tools, or do I have to use my teeth? For the next hour, the Queen of the Aethelgard watched in fascinated silence as her pet human dismantled a piece of technology sacred to her people. Using nothing but a multi-tool he had apparently smuggled in his belt and a lot of swearing. Hand me that coupler, Ronin grunted, buried waist-deep in the machinery. Xylara, who had commanded fleets to burn star systems, found herself obediently handing him the metal component. Twist it left. No, your other left, Ronin instructed. When he finally crawled out, covered in grease and blue coolant fluid, he kicked the base of the pillar. The grinding noise vanished. The room was suddenly perfectly, blissfully silent. The oppressive atmosphere lifted. Xylara took a deep breath. For the first time in centuries, the constant pressure behind her eyes faded. How? She whispered. Human maintenance protocol? Ronin wiped his hands on his pants. Percussive maintenance and checking the wiring. You're welcome. Xylara looked at him, really looked at him. Not as a pet, but as a being. She stepped closer, her massive height dwarfing him. She reached out, her hand hovering over his chest. The heat radiating from her was intense, like standing next to a furnace. You are useful, she murmured. I try, Ronin replied, his heart hammering against his ribs as her thumb brushed his collarbone. The touch sent a jolt of electricity through him that had nothing to do with static. And you are dirty, she wrinkled her nose. Go cleanse yourself. Tomorrow, you will not stay in the spire. If you can fix a conduit, perhaps you can fix other things in my crumbling empire. Weeks turned into months. The court of the Aethelgard didn't know what to make of Ronin. He wasn't a servant. He walked beside the queen, his strides quick to match her long gait. He fixed the atmospheric scrubbers in the lower districts. He optimized the traffic grid of the capital. He was stubborn, loud, and entirely unimpressed by their ancient traditions. And Xylara was changing. The cold statue was melting. She smiled when Ronin insulted the pompous nobles. She asked him questions about Earth, about human philosophy, about why his species fought so hard when they were so small. One evening, on the balcony of the spire, under the light of 3 moons, the conversation shifted. Why do you stay? Xylara asked. She was lounging on a grav couch, looking at the stars. Ronin was tinkering with an old Earth music player he'd built from scraps. I have stopped guarding the exits. You could steal a shuttle. I could, Ronin admitted. He pressed a button, and the tinny sound of an ancient Earth jazz track drifted into the alien air. But I've got nowhere to go. My people are scattered. And besides, he looked up at her. I don't think you should be alone right now. Xylara stiffened. I do not need your pity, human. It's not pity. It's empathy. There's a difference. Ronin put down the device and walked over to her. He sat on the edge of the couch. To anyone else, being this close to the queen was death. To Ronin, it felt like gravity pulling him home. High Archon Drax is making moves, Xylara. I see how he looks at you in the council. He thinks you're getting soft. Drax is a fool, Xylara hissed, her bioluminescence flaring red. He covets the throne. He believes the Aethelgard should return to the wars of conquest. He's gathering support, Ronin warned, and he's using me as an excuse. He says you've been corrupted by a lower species. Xylara sat up, her eyes blazing. She grabbed Ronin's chin, pulling him close. Her face was inches from his. He could smell ozone and exotic spices. Let him try, she growled. You are not a lower species, Ronin. You have a fire in you that my kind lost eons ago. You stabilize me. The moment hung in the air, heavy and electric. Ronin didn't pull away. I'm not just a stabilizer, Xylara. No, she whispered, her gaze dropping to his lips. You are a complication. Before the distance could close, a siren wailed across the city. The sky lit up with orbital bombardment fire. The peace was broken. High Archon Drax hadn't waited for a vote. He had launched a coup. The spire shook violently. Debris rained down from the ceiling. Xylara was on her feet instantly, summoning her ceremonial armor from the air with a thought. It formed around her like liquid mercury, hardening into diamond. Drax, she spat. He dares bombard the royal spire? He's not just bombarding it, Ronin shouted over the noise, checking a datapad. He's jamming the internal sensors. He's sending a kill team. He wants your head, Xylara. Then he shall have death. Xylara summoned a massive energy glaive. Stay here, Ronin. Hide. This is not a place for fragile things. She turned to the door, but Ronin was already moving. He grabbed a heavy kinetic rifle from a fallen guard's weapon rack. A gun meant for an alien twice his size. I told you, Ronin hefted the weapon, gritting his teeth under the weight. I'm not a pet, I'm an engineer. And right now, I'm going to engineer a way to kick Drax's ass. Xylara looked at him, surprise warring with pride in her eyes. Stubborn human, try not to get stepped on. They burst into the hallway, just as the blast doors blew inward. Drax's soldiers, hulking elites in red armor, poured in. The battle was chaotic. Xylara was a whirlwind of violet energy, her glaive cutting through armor and bone like they were paper. She moved with a speed that defied physics for a being of her size. But there were too many of them. Ronin didn't fight like an Aethelgard. He didn't stand and trade blows. He fought like a human. He was dirty. He was fast. He slid under the legs of a giant warrior, firing the kinetic rifle point blank into the unarmored joints of the knees. As the giant fell, Ronin used the body as a shield. He tossed an improvised EMP grenade, something he'd cobbled together from the toaster in the kitchen, into a cluster of enemies. Their energy shields flickered and died, leaving them vulnerable to Xylara's wrath. Right flank! Ronin screamed, spotting a sniper. Xylara didn't hesitate. She threw a disc of pure energy without looking, decapitating the threat. They moved as one unit, the ancient queen and the human scavenger, a dance of violence that was terrifyingly effective. But then, the High Archon himself appeared. Drax was even larger than Xylara, encased in ancient dreadnought armor. He wielded a hammer that crackled with void energy. Look at you, Drax boomed, his voice shaking the walls. Fighting alongside vermin, you have fallen low, Xylara. He swung the hammer. Xylara blocked with her glaive, but the force of the impact sent her skidding backward. She slammed into a pillar, her armor cracking. A trail of glowing violet blood trickled from her mouth. Xylara! Ronin scrambled toward her, but Drax backhanded him. The blow sent Ronin flying across the room. He hit the wall with a sickening crunch. His vision went white. His ribs were definitely broken. Drax loomed over the fallen queen. You are weak. Your time is over. I will cleanse the galaxy of these pests. He raised the hammer for the killing blow. Ronin lay on the floor, gasping for air. He couldn't move his legs, but his hand landed on the exposed wiring of the wall panel he had crashed into. The main power conduit for the spire's gravity stabilizers. Human ingenuity, he thought through the haze of pain. If you can't beat him, change the laws of physics. Hey, ugly! Ronin wheezed. Drax paused, looking over his shoulder. You still live, persistent insect? I'm not an insect. Ronin gripped the wires, ignoring the sparks burning his palms. I'm the guy who fixed the wiring, and now I'm gonna break it. Ronin ripped the cables free and jammed them together, bypassing the safety protocols. The artificial gravity in the room didn't just fail, it inverted. With a scream of tearing metal, the localized gravity field reversed instantly. Everyone, Drax, his guards, the debris, was slammed violently toward the ceiling. Everyone except Xylara. Because Ronin, in his weeks of tinkering, had magnetized her boots to the floor plating. He had told her it was to improve traction. She had called it silly. Now it saved her life. Drax hung helplessly in the air, flailing as he drifted upward. Xylara stood up, wiping the blood from her lip. She looked at Ronin, who was holding onto a bolted-down console for dear life, his legs dangling toward the ceiling. She looked at Drax. Gravity is a harsh mistress, isn't it? Xylara said softly. She crouched and leaped. With the gravity reversed for everyone else, she propelled herself upward like a missile. She met Drax in midair, her glaive glowing blinding white. "For the Aethelgard!" she roared. She drove the blade through Drax's armor, piercing his chest. She kicked off him, sending his lifeless body hurtling into the ventilation fans in the ceiling. Ronin let go of the wires. The gravity snapped back to normal. He fell, bracing for impact. But he didn't hit the floor. He landed in arms that were strong, warm, and hard as stone. Xylara caught him. She cradled him against her chest plate, dropping to one knee. The battle was over. The remaining guards threw down their weapons, terrified. "You," Xylara breathed, looking down at the broken human in her arms. Her golden eyes were wide with something that looked like panic. "You foolish, brilliant, suicidal creature." "Did we win?" Ronin coughed, blood staining his teeth. "Yes," Xylara's voice trembled. "We won." "Do not die, Ronin. That is a command from your queen. You're bossy when you're victorious," Ronin whispered. And then the darkness took him. Waking up in an Aethelgard healing tank was like drowning in warm jelly. Ronin gasped as the fluid drained away, the glass partition sliding open. He fell forward, but Xylara was there, always there. She caught him, wrapping him in a silk robe. They were in her private sanctum again. But something was different. The air felt charged. "You were dead," Xylara said. She was sitting on the edge of the healing pod, running her fingers through his wet hair. She looked different. Her violet skin seemed to have a faint golden shimmer under the surface, a color that matched Ronin's aura in the bioscanners. "Your heart stopped twice. Takes more than a gravity shift to kill a Carter." Ronin managed a weak grin. He looked at his hands. The scars were gone, and there was something else. Faint glowing lines traced the veins in his forearms. "Xylara, why am I glowing?" Xylara looked away, a flush of darker violet coloring her cheeks. "The healing tank. It requires a genetic donor to repair massive trauma. My blood was used to synthesize the regeneration serum." Ronin stared at her. "You gave me your blood?" "It has side effects," she murmured. "We are bonded now, Ronin, biologically. I can feel your heartbeat as if it were my own. I can sense your emotions." Ronin closed his eyes, focusing, and there it was. A hum in the back of his mind, a massive warm presence. He could feel her relief, her exhaustion, and her love. It was a tidal wave of affection that she had kept hidden behind walls of ice for centuries. "You love me," Ronin said, wonder in his voice. Xylara didn't deny it. She looked at him with ancient, tired eyes that were finally, truly awake. "I have watched civilizations rise and fall. I have seen stars burn out. But I have never seen anything burn as brightly as you did for me in that hall. You defended me when my own kind sought my death. You, a fragile human." She leaned down, her face inches from his. "Yes, Ronin, I love you. It is illogical. It is unprecedented. And I do not care." Ronin reached up, cupping her cheek. His hand looked small against her skin, but the connection between them flared, bright and warm. "Well, that's good, because I'm pretty fond of you too, Your Majesty." Xylara closed the distance. The kiss was gentle at first, a testing of waters, but then the bond flared. It wasn't just physical, it was a merging of minds. Ronin saw her memories, thousands of years of loneliness, and he filled the cracks with his own warmth. When they pulled apart, Xylara looked younger. The weight of the centuries seemed to have lifted. "The council awaits," she said, though she made no move to leave. "Drax's faction has crumbled. They are terrified of the human sorcerer who controls gravity." Ronin laughed. "Sorcerer? I like it. Better than pet." "Much better," Xylara agreed. She stood, pulling him up with her. "Come, my consort. Let us go show them what the future looks like." The doors to the throne room opened. The court was packed. Every noble, every general, every ambassador was there. They fell silent as Queen Xylara entered. She didn't walk alone. Beside her, dressed in a suit of Aethelgard weave mixed with human combat gear, walked Ronin. He didn't walk behind her. He walked with her. Xylara sat on her throne, the one Ronin had fixed. She gestured to the empty space beside her. A smaller, but equally ornate chair had been added. "Citizens of the Aethelgard!" Xylara's voice boomed, stronger and clearer than it had been in a millennium. "The era of isolation is over. We have looked inward for too long, believing ourselves perfect, while the galaxy evolved without us." She took Ronin's hand. The glowing lines on his arm flared in sync with hers, visible to everyone. A collective gasp rippled through the room. A bond, a blood bond. It was sacrilege. It was revolution. "This human," Xylara continued, squeezing Ronin's hand, has taught me that strength is not just in durability, but in adaptability, in courage, in the willingness to break things to make them better. She looked at Ronin, and her golden eyes softened. Drax sought to purify our bloodline. Instead, I have chosen to evolve it. Let it be known, the Aethelgard and humanity are now allies. Any attack on Terra is an attack on the throne. The room erupted in whispers, but Xylara silenced them with a look. And Ronin spoke up, his voice amplified by the throne systems. He grinned at the bird-like ambassador who had sold him, who was now shaking in the corner. The price of human imports just went up, way up. Xylara laughed, a sound of pure joy. She leaned back, her hand resting firmly in his. The galaxy wasn't ready for a 10-foot alien warrior queen and her chaotic engineering genius human husband. But as Ronin looked out at the sea of Boeing aliens, feeling the pulse of the woman he loved in his mind, he knew one thing for sure. They were going to have a hell of a time getting ready. Because when you mix human stubbornness with ancient cosmic power, you don't just get a marriage, you get a new superpower. And God help anyone who tried to get in their way.